We are getting new details in the shooting death of a young mother in Chicago. Prosecutors say the woman accused of killing her did not know her before that encounter.
We're also learning the accused had filed an order of protection months earlier that was never served. Tia Ewing is here with the other key points we've learned from court today.
I mean, so many key points in this case. And you mentioned her saying that she didn't know her. She said she had never laid eyes on her before until this shooting. And we know she is the alleged shooter in this case. Let's run it down for you. Prosecutors are revealing new details about the shooting that left Romeca Blackmon dead. They say the accused shooter, Quadajah Johnson, had never met Blackmon in person, even though she filed an unserved order of protection against her last December, claiming threats through family members. Blackmon's mother is now left raising her 7-year-old grandson.
I just want justice for my daughter, and I want peace in my family. This has been such a hard 3 months. It's been painful. It's been terrible. I mean, we've been torn apart. One of the leaders of our family, she was the baby, but she was the leader. The holidays are not holidays. I'm just grateful to God.
Well, let's walk through this. So on September 8th, investigators say Johnson and the father of her child were near his home. They drove Johnson to 20 West Cermak, where her car was parked. They placed their 6-month-old into Johnson's car in the back seat. Around the same time, Blackmon had just dropped off her son at a nearby school and drove back to the area where Johnson and the father were. Witnesses told police the women argued. They reported the father pushing Johnson away and Blackmon standing with her arms crossed. They say he then slammed a car door on Blackmon and also put her in a chokehold. Prosecutors say Johnson broke free, and that is when, or I should say Blackmon broke free, and that is when Blackmon was shot once. And then that's when they say Johnson paused, then fired 2 more times. Police recovered 3 9mm casings there at that scene. Johnson legally owned the gun and claimed self-defense. Prosecutors say Blackmon was unarmed. Her son turned 7 days after the shooting and is still asking to this very day, where is his mother?
Carlos may be hurt for the rest of his life, but we make sure he see rainbows in his clouds. Amen. Okay? Nothing will ever change about that. There is nothing he needs that we cannot provide. He is perfectly well. He is happy. He is thriving. And even when he feels his lowest, we pull him out of it together like we do with each other. He a superstar like his mom, and he's going to show her better than he can tell her.
Now, Johnson's lawyers did argue that she's 7 weeks pregnant and should be released from custody. The judge didn't see it that way. She remains in custody even right now. Johnson's next court appearance is scheduled to happen December 23rd.
September 8th, 2025. Chicago, Illinois, 9:06 a.m. The South Loop was settling into the rhythmic hum of a Monday morning. For most of the city, this was the start of the grind. The sound of CTA trains screeching on the elevated tracks, the smell of exhaust and expensive coffee, the blur of people rushing toward the skyline. But on a specific stretch of Cermak Road, the air was about to be punctured by a sound that would change the lives of 2 families forever. Romeca Meeks-Blackmon, 31 years old, a woman whose world revolved around her children, had just finished the most sacred and routine task of her day, dropping her 6-year-old son off at school. She was walking back, perhaps planning her afternoon, perhaps feeling the relief of a quiet morning. She had no way of knowing that she was being hunted. This wasn't a chance encounter. This wasn't a wrong place, wrong time scenario. According to the state of Illinois, this was the endgame of a predatory obsession. Quadajah Johnson, 31, was idling in a car nearby. She wasn't there by accident. She was there with a weapon, a purpose, and a cold, calculating detachment that would later leave a courtroom in stunned silence. This wasn't a domestic dispute between 2 people on equal footing. It was a cold, calculated execution. As Romeca walked along the sidewalk of the 200 block of West Cermak Road, the peace of the morning was shattered. Surveillance footage captured the harrowing sequence of events. Quadajah Johnson confronted Romeca, and a physical struggle ensued. This wasn't a fair fight. A man, later identified as the father of Romeca's child, was present and allegedly participated in the violence. He reportedly held Romeca in a chokehold. pinning her helplessly against the pavement. While Romeca was immobilized, gasping for breath under the weight of her attacker, Quadajah Johnson made a series of deliberate choices. She walked back to her vehicle. Every step she took away from the struggle was an opportunity to de-escalate, to drive away, to let the anger subside. Instead, she reached into the car and retrieved a handgun. She walked back to where Romeca was still being held down. She stood over the mother of three and opened fire. Multiple rounds were discharged at point-blank range into Romeca's head and neck. The sounds of the shots echoed off the brick buildings, sending bystanders diving for cover. But it was what happened after the smoke cleared that haunted the investigators. As Romeca lay dying on the concrete, Quadajah Johnson didn't scream. She didn't flee in a state of panic or shock. She looked at the man who had helped pin Romeca down and gave him a casual fist bump. That single gesture, a celebration of murder on a public sidewalk, became the central pillar of the prosecution's case. It stripped away any facade of self-defense and revealed a chilling level of premeditation. December 4th, 2025, the Cook County Courthouse. The environment was sterile, but the emotion was electric. The pews were a sea of pink, Romeca's favorite color, worn by a community that refused to let her be forgotten. Quadajah Johnson sat at the defense table, 31 years old and 7 weeks pregnant. She looked like anyone else on the street, but the evidence presented by the prosecution revealed a different story. They played the surveillance video. Extra in the courtroom went cold. Romeca's mother, Tina McMiller, sat in the front row, forced to witness the final seconds of her daughter's life over and over again. She spoke to the court about a bundle of pain that had torn their family apart, describing the agonizing reality of explaining to a 6-year-old why his mother never came back from dropping him off at school.
You want to say something to her, look down at your heart. And whatever you say to her, say it to her right there. The same way I have to do. I have to look right here. And I have to talk to her. And ask her, just tell me what happened.
When the judge's gavel finally fell, it wasn't just a sound. It was the sound of a tomb door being bolted from the outside. The judge noted that celebrating after a shooting is the antithesis of self-defense. It is predatory. Quadajah Johnson was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In the state of Illinois, that means exactly what it says. She will never again draw a breath of free air. She will never raise the child she was carrying. She will never walk down a city street or see a sunrise that isn't framed by razor wire. But let that sink in. To the casual observer, life sounds like a reprieve. It sounds like the state being humane. But as we sit here in February 2026, the reality for Quadajah Johnson is something far more visceral and terrifying. It is a slow-motion execution of the soul, played out over the next 50 to 60 years in a landscape where time is the primary predator. Death would have been easier. In the finality of an execution, the sensory world is extinguished in a flash. It is a full stop. But for Quadajah, her reality is a living death, a brutal, waking nightmare where she is buried alive in a concrete box, forced to live with the knowledge that she traded her entire biological future for a few seconds of predatory violence and a fist bump. I want to welcome you back to the channel. We investigate the cases the world tried to forget, looking for the truth in the spaces between the headlines. If you find value in these deep dives, please subscribe and join our community of investigators. And as we begin, tell us where you are watching from today, whether it's the United States, Canada, Australia, or beyond. Leave a comment below. We read every single one. To truly understand the magnitude of this nightmare, we have to look at the clinical, high-intensity timeline of that morning. This was not a heat-of-the-moment accident. In the months leading up to the murder, the path was littered with red flags. Quadajah had been involved in a campaign of harassment. She had even tried to weaponize the legal system herself, filing a stalking no-contact order against Romeca in 2024 that was never served, a move prosecutors described as a preemptive strike to cover her own obsessive behavior. The investigation revealed a woman consumed by a possessive rage, a fixation that turned toxic and eventually lethal. Analyze the offender's psychology for a moment. Forensic experts often look at celebratory violence as a sign of a lack of empathy or a personality disorder, characterized by a complete disregard for human life. The fist bump wasn't just a gesture, it was a psychological fingerprint. It showed that in the moment of the murder, Quadajah felt a sense of achievement rather than horror. This predatory wiring is what the state of Illinois decided made her too dangerous to ever be released. In 2026, the why no longer matters to the state, when the only thing that remains is a mother in a grave and a woman in a cage, realizing she will likely give birth in a prison infirmary to a child she will only hold for a few hours before it is taken away. Now consider the milestone erasure. As we sit here in early 2026, the calendar for Quadajah Johnson has been incinerated. Think about the specific human experiences she has lost. She will never see her children grow up. She will never have a career, a home of her own, or the simple freedom to walk down a street without the jangle of shackles. Every human milestone, birthdays, holidays, the simple pleasure of a summer sunset, has been deleted. Contrast her age milestones against her physical decay. She is 31 now, in the prime of her life, but the prison environment is a catalyst for biological erosion. In 20 years, she will be 51, her skin turning sallow and her eyes growing dull under the harsh, flickering fluorescent lights. In 40 years, she will be an elderly woman in a cage, her memories of that morning on Cermak Road fading like old photographs left in the sun. She will watch her own body wither in a space no larger than a walk-in closet, realizing that every gray hair is a milestone in a life spent waiting for nothing. The reality of her life inside the walls is a place designed to break the human ego down to its molecular components. The lights hum to life at 4:30 a.m., not the gentle golden light of the sun, but a harsh, buzzing neon glare that marks the start of another 24-hour cycle of monotony. No hope, no second chances, just concrete. The food is a tasteless, lukewarm fuel pushed through a metal slot in a steel door, a mechanical transaction for a life that has no purpose. The beanhole, as it's known, is her only connection to the outside world. Describe the concrete box: 4 walls, a thin mat on a metal slab, and a stainless steel toilet that offers zero privacy. There is no silence here. There is only the constant, low-level roar of the industrial ventilation system and the distant, haunting sounds of other women who have already been unmade by the system. In the prison hierarchy, Quadajah Johnson exists in a dangerous, pressurized space. In a high-security unit, the nature of your crime determines your survival. A lifer who executed a mother after a petty argument and celebrated it is viewed with a specific type of hostility. She is not a hero, she is a case number. She exists in a state of permanent hypervigilance, knowing that the hierarchy can shift over a tray of food, a perceived slight, or a rumor spread in the yard. She has to wonder every time she leaves her cell if today is the day her living death becomes a literal one. As we move through 2026, the legal updates are cold and infrequent. Her appeals move through the judicial system with the agonizing geological speed of a glacier. Each rejection is another nail in the coffin of her hope. For the world outside, Quadajah Johnson is already a ghost. She is a name in an archive, a warning in a textbook, a statistic in a report on urban violence. She is the architect of her own disaster, living in a permanent monument to a single morning of predatory violence. Before we close, Aaron, we must state clearly, Romeca Meeks-Blackmon's pain is the only true priority here. A family was shattered into a million pieces. We are not defending Quadajah Johnson. We are analyzing the weight of the justice she is now forced to carry. But it leaves us with a final, chilling question for you. Is life without parole a civilized punishment? Or is it a living death that is actually more cruel than a quick execution? Is justice served by 50 years of slow, silent rot? Does the punishment fit the crime? The case of Quadajah Johnson is just one file in a very dark cabinet. In our next video, I'm opening the vault on a story even more chilling than this one. Don't get left outside the walls. Join us, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.